Today is Tuesday, May 5th, 2026, and today is National Astronaut Day, which feels like one of those things that sounds distant until you realize how recently it actually happened. Welcome to Wait That's Random, This Day in History. I'm your host, C.L. Burns, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and your guide through the odd and unexpected corners of history. Let's dive in. On May 5, 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American to travel into space. The flight lasted just over 15 minutes. It didn't orbit the Earth. It went up and came back down. At first, this might not sound like much, but at the time it mattered, because the United States had just watched the Soviet Union send Yuri Gagarin into orbit weeks earlier. And suddenly, space wasn't theoretical anymore. It was a race. Shepard's flight reached about 116 miles above Earth. He experienced weightlessness, looked back down, and confirmed something that had only been tested in pieces before, that a human could function in space. That single flight didn't solve everything, but it shifted perception. Because once something like that works, even briefly, it stops being a question of if. It becomes a question of what's next? And sometimes, something that looks simple on the surface is almost impossible to repeat. On May 5, 1904, Cy Young pitched a perfect game. 27 batters, 27 outs. No hits, no walks, no errors. Nothing out of place. And what makes this stand out isn't just the result. It's how exact it is. Because there's no margin in a perfect game. One mistake ends it. One walk. One dropped ball, and it's no longer perfect. At the time, baseball looked different. Equipment was simpler. Conditions weren't controlled the way they are now. But even with all that, the standard stayed the same. Perfection meant no one reached base. And that's something that hasn't changed, because even today, more than a century later, perfect games are still rare, which says something about how difficult it is to get everything right. Even once. And sometimes, getting somewhere takes more than precision, it takes repetition. Today in 1891, Carnegie Hall officially opened in New York City. At the time, it was designed to be one of the most important performance venues in the country. A place for music, orchestras, and large audiences. And over time, that's exactly what it became. Some of the most well-known performers in the world have stood on that stage. But what stands out isn't just the building, it's what it represents. Because Carnegie Hall became a symbol of arrival. Not just performing, but performing there. And there's even a well-known joke tied to it. Someone asks, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is, practice. It's simple, but it sticks. Because it reflects something real. That getting to a place like that doesn't happen quickly. It builds over time. And that's what the hall came to represent. Not just performance, but the path it takes to get there. And sometimes that path leads somewhere unexpected. Karl Marx was born on May 5, 1818. He became known for his work in philosophy, economics, and political theory. His writing focused on how societies are structured, especially around labor, class, and ownership. One of his most well-known works, the Communist Manifesto, laid out ideas that would go on to influence governments, economies, and political movements around the world. But what stands out isn't just the writing, it's how far those ideas traveled. Because they didn't stay on the page. They were interpreted, adapted, and applied in very different ways depending on where they were used. And that led to outcomes that varied wildly. What started as a theory became something much larger and more complicated. Because sometimes ideas don't just exist. They evolve once people start acting on them. At first, these don't seem connected, but they start to line up. A short moment proves something is possible. A perfect outcome shows how difficult consistency really is. And a place becomes a symbol of what it takes to get there. Different situations, but each one shows how progress builds. One step, one moment, one repetition at a time. Anyway, that's what came together while working through May 5th. I'll be back tomorrow with a new date to work through. If you'd like to hear more of my work or explore the books and projects I've been a part of, you can find it all at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns, and I appreciate you stopping by. I'll see you tomorrow.